Hey there, synth drones. Today, I want to talk to you about synthesizers and baby birds. Hi, I'm Pure Ambient Drone, and you're watching a channel about synthesizers that's like no other channel out there. I don't want to just make a channel that talks about each and every synth's specs and capabilities. I want to talk about us, the people behind the synthesizers. And if you're willing to join me with that, hit the subscribe button and tap the bell and dig deeper at pureambientdrone.com. Pureambientdrone.com is the place to be to connect with me. Birds and synthesizers. Well, I want to tell you a little story here. There was this robin that was flying by every day around my wife and I out back. We have this patio, and above that is the bottom of our upper porch. And this robin started bringing in nesting materials, and she started building a beautiful little nest. And she just kind of stuck it in a little corner right in front of us, completely ignoring the fact that there were human beings around. And we watched this nest grow, and then we watched her come in there, and she laid her eggs, and she started sitting on her eggs, and then her eggs hatched, and then she started feeding her babies. And then the father robin started coming along, and he was feeding the babies as well. Now, I looked up a little bit about robins. I'm no expert, but it got my curiosity. And supposedly, the mother stops feeding after a while and leaves it all up to the father. But in this case, the mother and the father had been feeding these babies together and staying with them at night. So I'm watching all of this take place, and I'm watching these babies grow, and we counted 4 of them. And I'm going somewhere with this because during this whole crisis, everybody pretty much has been stuck at home. So it was a great gift that we got to see these birds be with us and keep us company. And not knowing much about robins, not as much as I know now. I don't know anything now, but I knew exactly a lot less, if you will, prior to this. We were very concerned about the babies, and we watched one of them as it fell out of the nest, and it was way too young to be out of its nest. So we put him back in his nest, and he seems to be doing just great. Well, fast forward a week, and they're so big now that one of them had hobbled off. And I didn't know that was normal, and neither did my wife, and neither did the young girl that lives behind us. And she saw this little bird hopping along and struggling and thought maybe it needed to go back to its nest. And we all kind of agreed that maybe it did. And there we were, all of us. And I don't mean just me, my wife, and this young girl, but the neighborhood pretty much was trying to rescue this bird. And we caught this little baby bird, and we put her back in the nest. We wore gloves and everything so that we wouldn't transfer anything over to the bird, such as scent or disease or anything like that. We took our precautions. And I know what some of you guys are thinking right now. What in the world are you guys doing? Well, yeah, in hindsight, it's always 2020. Well, when the young girl put the bird back in its nest, 2 other birds flew off. And we were left with 2 birds instead of 3. And then we woke up this morning. Well, actually, it was later last night. And now there was only 1 bird left. And of course, I'm researching this some more, which is something I should have done prior to this, and found that, this is what they're supposed to do. They're supposed to leave, and they're supposed to develop their wings and their flying capabilities. And then I found that the father kind of watches over them in the wild and continues to feed them, and in some cases can even sleep around them to comfort them and to keep them safe. But being people, being human, we got mixed up in it, and we couldn't leave well enough alone. So where does that bring me to synthesizers? It made me reflect on some of the things that I've done here in the studio, and I went back and listened to some of my older music and some of my older tracks and some of my older videos, and I realized that there was a lot of contentment through the years that I was happy with a lot of my setups that I had, but I kept changing things and complicating things until I got frustrated. And, that's what can happen is when we take something that is working, but it doesn't look like it's working. It doesn't seem like it's going to work. It doesn't seem like it's perfect. And we try to make it perfect. And watching these little birds hop away like they were and struggling to fly, to me and to everyone around us, it seemed like it wasn't right. It seemed like there was something we as a community could do to help these little birds survive better. But in doing so, we just created bigger problems, and we should have stayed out of nature's business. And sometimes we have to look around in our own studio and say, okay, enough is enough. It's time to make music. It's time to enjoy what we already have. It's time to stop tinkering, and it's time to get down to business and accept things for how they are. But if you're like me and most other synth drones, we look around in our studio and we see what we can possibly fix. And we get these crazy ideas driven by that three-letter word, gas. We think, I could buy this, and I could buy that, and I could add this, and I could subtract that. And sometimes the money flow doesn't always pay for the things that we want to add. So then we say, I can take this away, and I could add that with the money. It's a vicious cycle. And it's something that we all have to learn to get away from eventually, to let good enough be good enough, and to live with those results, and to live with those situations, and then to enjoy those situations. It's easier said than done, believe me. Well, my final note is my wife and I, we got one more little birdie up there, and boy, do we miss those little birds chirping when the parents would come and feed them. So far today, I haven't seen anybody, mother or father, I should say, feeding the last bird. It may be something that's natural. Maybe that bird has to fly off and find its own way in the world. I don't know. But it sure is a great blessing to have had those little birds here for as long as we have. We got one more, and I'm sure by this time tomorrow, he'll be on his way into the wild world. Well, I'm Pure Ambient Drone. I hope you enjoyed this edition of Synthesizers and Birds. Don't forget to subscribe and join me at pureambientdrone.com. Oh, and by the way, keep calm and synth on.